Today's podcast with Marcus McMaryion, Calgary Stampeders quarterback from the CFL. It's a great conversation with Marcus, and it's presented today by Convoy of Hope. Check out convoynation.com to learn more, to donate, and partner with Convoy of Hope and your favorite players and teams to fight hunger, poverty, and suffering in the United States and throughout the world. Check out convoynation.com.
Welcome to Sports Spectrum, where we bring Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, former ESPN producer, Jason Romano.
Welcome to the show. I am Jason, and this is the Sports Spectrum podcast. My email address, jason@sportspectrum.com. If you have any guest ideas or suggestions, or you just want to send us a story that maybe we should be covering, you can email me, jason@sportspectrum.com. And make sure you check out our website as well, sportspectrum.com, the home base for all of our content, podcasts, devotionals, articles, stories written every single day on Jesus and sports colliding and intersecting. Sportspectrum.com is the website to turn to each and every day for the latest articles and updates on the world of sports intersecting with faith. And you can sign up right now for our weekly newsletter for free at sportspectrum.com. You'll see the icon at the top that says newsletter. You sign up and you're good to go. You receive a weekly email, one email a week from us, letting you know the latest and greatest from Sports Spectrum and updating you on what you might have missed in the world of our podcasts and articles from sportspectrum.com. And when you sign up for our newsletter, again, that's free, we're going to send you a free gift, a 10-day devotional written by professional athletes for free when you sign up for our newsletter at sportspectrum.com. That is a free digital download of a 10-day daily devotional written by professional athletes from the world of the NFL, MLB, NBA, and other sports. And it's for free when you sign up for our newsletter at sportspectrum.com. Today's show with Marcus McMaryion is really good. Marcus is a Calgary Stampeders quarterback in the CFL. In college, he played his college ball at Fresno State and Oregon State. While he was at Fresno State, he was named and voted as a team captain his senior year. Started all 14 games for the Bulldogs at quarterback. He was an All-Mountain West honorable mention and named to the Mountain West All-Academic team. And he led his squad to 2 bowl wins, the Hawaii Bowl and the Las Vegas Bowl, and had the best record in school history. In high school in Fresno, he threw for 6,000 yards and 71 touchdowns over 2 seasons and won a Division III Valley Conference title as a senior before coming into his college career at Oregon State and then transferring over to Fresno State. He earned his bachelor's degree at Oregon State, his master's degree at Fresno State, and now he's continuing his pro football career in the CFL, the Canadian Football League, with the Calgary Stampeders. Yes, he had some looks in the NFL with the Oakland Raiders and the New Orleans Saints, but then has pivoted now and has an opportunity to continue playing professionally in the CFL. Marcus also just became a dad. He also just got married a little over a year ago. He got his master's degree all in 2020. Like, he just piled it all, packed it all into one season, and he's got a great heart for Jesus as well. Let's hear the story of Marcus McMaryion, Calgary Stampeders quarterback, right now on Sports Spectrum. Marcus, welcome to Sports Spectrum. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me. Super excited. I always love hearing my intro. I feel like I learn new things about myself just about every time.
Isn't it the funniest thing when you get introduced and they start telling you about all the accolades and the different things, and you don't even realize some cases that what you had done until everybody kind of puts it into a small, 45-second introduction on all of the different things you've accomplished. It kind of makes you shake your head a little bit, huh?
Yeah, 100%. Sometimes I'll get lost and I'm like, man, this guy's cool. Who are they talking about? And I'm like, oh, wait.
We're talking about you, Marcus. We're talking about you, Marcus McMaryion.
Right.
Let's start with the CFL. So we're taping this in May. The season was supposed to start at the end of this month. We're running this the first week of June, last week of May here on the podcast. That's not happening now, right? You just got to note that the season it's probably not going to be more until July into August, hopefully, that the CFL gets going. So you kind of been put on pause right now a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. So the Players Association actually just sent out an email to all the players and just kind of letting us know that the league made the decision that they're going to delay it another 2 months. So July 10th will be camp. August 5th is the start date for as far as the season goes, and even that's kind of a tentative yes. And I say that because there are certain guidelines that obviously it's not so much the league that's wanting to delay; it's more of kind of the public health officials and kind of having to abide by the local regulations and whatever the government kind of wants Canada to do.
Sure. Yeah, you got to follow obviously the regulations, and everybody wants to be safe, and hopefully there'll be a season for you, because it must be an exciting time too, getting ready for the CFL, signing a contract. And what does preparation look like now? Now that you know that, okay, there's another couple months when you were probably gearing up to get ready to play this month. Now you got to wait a few more months. Do you go back to maybe what you were doing a couple months ago and kind of go through those motions again to get you prepared to play in July? Or do you just kind of keep going? Like, what's your thinking process here on your workouts and preparation?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it definitely changes the intensity level, I'd say, is more what changes as far as kind of the number of hours and stuff you're putting in. As far as when you're a couple months out, you could kind of take care of your body a little bit more as far as, or really getting after it, I guess you could say, as far as lifting kind of the intensity wise and kind of increase the volume and not have to worry about it. But once it gets about a month out, a couple weeks out, you kind of start to tone it down and really focus on your flexibility and your durability and that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's nice that I could kind of just get back into the groove of lifting and training and doing that kind of full blown, but then also at the same time pulling off on the mental aspect of it. And then as it gets closer, the mental kind of more gears up and the physical kind of takes a little bit off.
You just became a proud papa as well to Malachi, right? Congratulations.
Yeah, I did. Thank you. Yeah, he actually just hit 2 months, about 2 weeks ago now, and man, it's blowing by. I can't imagine in any other way. It's having him in my life now. It's definitely. I thought I was motivated before, but I mean, I had no idea looking at a little version of yourself.
Mm-hmm. How has becoming a dad changed you and your perspective, maybe towards the way you were approaching life before you became a dad?
Yeah, it makes you think, I mean, not only a step ahead, but I mean, 3, 4, 10 steps ahead, kind of thinking for the future as far as the moves and stuff I'm doing, as far as just, in every aspect of life, really. I mean, financially, spiritually, emotionally, kind of everything I'm doing. It's like, even when I'm trying to develop myself through any kind of personal development or anything I'm doing or strengthen my relationship with my wife, it's like, hey, I'm really doing this for Malachi and kind of being a role model to him in every way, shape, and form that I can.
I noticed on your Instagram as well, Marcus, it's the real MM2, by the way, the number 2, if you want to go check out his Instagram. You have an awesome tattoo with a cross and Galatians 6:14 written on it. Tell us about that verse and why you have that tattoo.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I've always been kind of a big tattoo guy, and I've never ended up getting one until I got this one. And people were like, well, if you want a tattoo so bad, like, why haven't you got some? Because obviously college football and NFL, you got a lot of guys that have tattoos all over the place. And I was just like, hey, like, when I get one, I want it to mean something to me. And I ended up kind of the location of it, I put on my right wrist. Obviously the cross is right there, and it says Galatians 6:14. And it's just that verse really just resonated with me. Just may I never boast in anything except the cross of the Lord. And I put that there just kind of as a reminder that my right arm's obviously been a huge blessing as far as being able to throw a football, and it's opened doors and opportunities for me that wouldn't have been there otherwise. But just kind of looking down, every time I pick up a football or anything I'm doing, it just reminds me that God's given me much, but he could also take it away as quick as he wanted to, and just kind of bring me back to just a sense of, hey, I'm super thankful for everything that I have in my life and grateful, but at the same time, it could be taken away, to not take any days for granted.
Is that hard to not boast in anything but the Lord when you think about success in playing the game of football, the sport of football, and the success that you had not only in high school but in college? Was that a hard thing to grasp and understand? It's a great reminder, and I put that on my wrist as well as a reminder to remember, it's not me, it's God. But that's sometimes a hard thing when everybody's kind of patting you on your back and telling you about your accolades and all you've accomplished. And so much of sports is about accomplishment and achievement. Has that been hard, kind of that boasting thing for you?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's why I have it there. It's definitely, it's a daily struggle. It's not there to, by any means, to say I'm perfect at this. It's there because it's one of those things that every day I wake up, I have to remind myself. It's like, hey, you're doing it for a bigger reason than yourself. You're playing for an audience of one, because it's very easy to get caught up in, getting verified on social medias and having lots of followers and getting lots of likes and kind of starting to do it for the wrong reasons. And it's just kind of a constant reminder for me as far as that goes. And it took me a long time to get to that point. I really don't think until my senior year of college, I really, really started playing for an audience of one. I know as far as just playing and using my talents for God's kingdom and kind of pushing it that way. And I say that I used to circle the field before every game my senior year at Fresno State. And it was kind of symbolic of when they're circling the walls of Jericho and they weren't really sure what was going to happen, just unknown. And then the walls ended up collapsing. And I think we had read it in a chapel my senior or my junior year, and it just hit home. It was one of those messages just kind of smacked me in the face and like a gut punch. And I was like, whoa, like, this is powerful stuff. So I started to circle the field just kind of in a way to remind myself, it's like, hey, God, I don't know what's going on. And I'm okay not having 100% control of everything that's happening. But whether I throw 5 interceptions or 5 touchdowns, I know it's your will. And that was super hard. And I had to swallow my pride before every game to actually say that and confidently say that when I prayed right before walking off the field.
I love that. That's a great story, Marcus. And I wonder for you, as you were younger, it sounds like you had faith in your life before that. Like there were seeds planted. There might have even been moments where you said yes to Christ, but understanding that really, what that really meant to play for an audience of one changed your senior year. But take me back a little bit to faith growing up, faith in your life, when those seeds started to become seeds that were starting to, harvest, and you had to plant them and water them, obviously, and treat them well. But where does that faith kind of take shape for you and the seeds that were planted in your life?
Yeah, the seeds, it started early on. My mom grew up in a very strong Christian household. She was taking me to church every Sunday, whether I wanted to go or not, kind of waking up to go. So she kind of established that culture as far as, hey, we go to church on Sunday. And growing up, you go to Awana's on Wednesdays and you kind of do all that kind of stuff. So that was, I'm super thankful that she placed that in my life. But it really turned around for me once I got to college, because I didn't have my mom waking me up every Sunday to take me to church. And I actually didn't go to church for probably the first couple months. A little bit because I wasn't really sure, as a new area, new town, wasn't sure what church to go to or kind of exactly how to schedule that in and stuff like that. So I think I kind of leaned on that a little heavy for the first couple weeks. And then after that, it was kind of just purely just up to me to make the decision. It's like, hey, is God, either God's a part of my life or he isn't? And I was fortunate enough that I was surrounded with really strong Christian based roommates, actually, that I kind of mysteriously fell upon, and they helped me and got me going in the right direction.
Marcus McMaryion is joining us here on Sports Spectrum. You grew up in California. Football, I have to imagine, and even the quarterback position, was that always your first love? Yeah,
it was. Football was always my first love. I did play baseball, was fairly decent at baseball. I played on USA baseball team and actually played out in Japan, so I had a good time playing baseball too. Nice. Played basketball and ended up doing track as well. But football, my dad played quarterback growing up, kind of just like every kid. I kind of wanted to be just like my dad. I wore number 10 because he wore number 10 growing up in high school, and Pop Warner and all that kind of stuff. So he was always giving me every bit and ounce of information or knowledge he had about the position. And obviously his kind of ultimate goal was me to get one step farther than he did, and definitely kind of have that same goal and mindset as far as raising my son Malachi, whatever direction he wants to take that, whether that's sports, he wants to be an artist, drama, whatever he's going to do, we're definitely going to give him the best access I can and hopefully put him in a better position than I was.
Does Dad break out the old high school tapes of himself and show Marcus McMaryion, hey, look at the old man. He could play and he could sling it a little bit too?
I haven't watched any actual game footage of him in high school, but he did play when I was in, I want to say junior high. He was in like a semi-pro kind of adult league kind of thing that they played on the weekends, and I actually got to see him throw the ball around, and you could definitely see the talent there. I mean, where I got my arm strength from. I mean, he has a quick release and he gets rid of the ball fast. I mean, he's definitely talented. So that was kind of fun growing up when I was around junior high, kind of 7th, 8th grade, kind of seeing him spin the ball around, and he's kind of walk around with a little chip on his shoulder like, hey, you're good at football, but this is where you got it from. That's
great. How does playing the position of quarterback parallel with being a follower of Christ for you? Because I think there's a lot of similarities, discipline, and some other things, some other aspects. What does that look like for you? How does it play? Playing that position is one thing, right? I think it's the hardest position to play in all sports, quarterback. But parallel that with your walk and your daily disciplines in being a follower of Christ.
Yeah, lining that up with my faith. You mentioned discipline. I mean, obviously that's huge as far as your faith and kind of football and quarterback goes. The one word that kind of comes to my mind right away when I think of a parallel for me, just the way I approach the quarterback position, is just kind of a servant leadership. I've always been one I want to earn the respect and earn that from my teammates and let them understand, like, hey, I'm going to be the first one in the building. I'm going to be the last one to leave. And I don't do that for attention or anything. I just do it to kind of set the standard and just let guys know, like, hey, I'm here for you guys. If you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Like, I want you guys to feel comfortable knowing that your quarterback is there working day in and day out. And that's his only concern as far as that goes. And as far as, I mean, in faith, I mean, just kind of serving other people. I mean, treat people the way you want to be treated. I mean, kind of just to the basic principles of the Bible. I mean, I think a lot of times people try to overcomplicate it and dive too deep and take it, and they get kind of stirred the wrong way as far as thing goes, and just really kind of bringing it down to its core principles, like just serve others and do unto others as you'd like done unto yourself, and kind of just in that realm, and just really trying to serve as many people as I can with the gifts God's blessed me with.
Were you that servant leader when was that always that way for you? Because I mean, in high school, you were a pretty decorated high school quarterback. I saw you threw for over 6,000 yards and 70 touchdowns in your final 2 seasons. That's a lot of passing for high school. My nephew plays high school ball, and they don't throw nearly that much. And I know the game is changing in certain areas, maybe even having more of a pass-happy offense. But that's a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns. I think you won a Division III conference title that year, your senior year. So you're looked at as the man in a lot of cases when you're being recruited and going to places like Oregon State and Fresno State. But was your mindset to be a servant leader even then, or is that something you kind of learned and grew into as you got into college?
Yeah, I would say I had that mindset in high school as well, and I would 100% accredit that to my mother. She wasn't the most knowledgeable as far as football and the sports and ins and outs. Obviously, she knew like touchdowns, like, hey, that's good. She didn't really know the ins and outs of the positions and stuff like that. I really leaned on my dad for that knowledge and kind of strength and guidance as far as that goes. But my mom was always my number one cheerleader. But what my mom did do, anytime my head got any kind of big at all, she would be the first one to pop it so fast and remind me that I was her son. And when I'm in the house, that's what I am. I'm her son. I'm not the star football player. I'm not the kid with all the offers. I'm not the big fish in the small pond. She said, you're just my son. That's what you are when you're in the house, and you're going to go clean your room and you're going to do the dishes. And so 100% credit to my mom and her just kind of giving me that daily kind of reminder that you could have multiple identities at once, and it could be a good thing as far as understanding in certain circumstances. Okay, I'm on the weekends when I'm spending time or a family barbecue, like I'm a cousin, I'm a son, I'm a friend, in kind of that regards. And when I'm on the football player, it's like, okay, I can have a little bit different attitude and demeanor to myself. It's like, hey, I'm confident in my abilities to go out here and do what I have to do to lead a team of guys.
A quick break to tell you about our new partners and sponsors today, Convoy of Hope, a faith-based nonprofit organization with a driving passion to feed the world through children's feeding initiatives, community outreaches, and disaster responses. And right now in the U.S. and throughout the world, countless families are living on the fringe or have fallen into the depths of poverty and suffering. But you can make a difference. And right now, we need you to join the starting lineup with Convoy of Hope and join your favorite players and teams in partnering with Convoy of Hope to fight hunger, poverty, and suffering in the United States and throughout the world. And in doing so, you can advocate, give, network, and volunteer to help ensure that those in need receive hot meals, groceries, haircuts, health and dental screenings, hygiene kits, shoes, clothing, family portraits, and much more. You can learn more right now and be a part of the great work Convoy of Hope is doing by visiting them at their website, convoynation.com. You can donate, you can pray, and be a part of all that Convoy of Hope is doing by, again, checking out that website, convoynation.com, CONVOY nation.com. Marcus, my nephew is a high school quarterback. He just finished his junior year. It was a weird junior year because he played in the spring. His name is Caleb. He played his junior year of football in the spring because of COVID and all that. And he's getting some looks from some D2 schools. I think he's got a legit shot at a scholarship. He loves Jesus. He loves football. He's a pretty talented kid on the field, and he's also got a really good head on his shoulders off the field. I'm just saying him as an example, right? So go back to your junior year. We just talked about high school, right? Talk to that version of Marcus and imagine that Marcus and my nephew, Marcus, 16-year-old Marcus and my nephew are standing there and you're talking to them. What would you say to that young man or those young men who are thinking about coming in and, maybe have faith in their life, the servant leadership like you described, hoping for the future, have dreams and aspirations, but knowing what you know now and what you've gone through and lived through, what would be the advice or the encouragement you would give to my nephew and that younger version of you or any other 16-year-old kind of getting ready to get ready for the next stage of life and maybe really loves sports and is pretty talented as well?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say, I'm trying to think, I would say it's worth it. And what I kind of mean by that when I say that is sacrifice now so you could enjoy the fruits of your labor later, and just understanding that. I think something I wish somebody would have told me just point blank period when I was that age is that success is not fun and it's not attractive and it's not the road that everyone wants to go down. And it's very similar to kind of Christianity, depending on how far and strong you are in your strength. And it's not always the most attractive thing to do. I mean, waking up at 5 a.m. to go lift weights and then going to school and then doing study hall and then practicing and then breaking down the film and then doing that over and then waking up the next day to just hit reset and basically do it all over. I mean, it's not fun. I actually just listened to an interview with Tim Grover, who was Kobe's trainer and Michael Jordan's, and he kind of touches on that as far as winning's. He says winning's everything as far as that goes, but it's definitely, it resonated with me because you work so hard and you win a Mountain West championship, and then you wake up the next day and it's just you. You wake up in the bed. It's just you. I mean, you have to be okay within yourself, and that kind of goes off in another direction as far as kind of just being sure you're okay with your mental health and a lot of other things, and understanding that there's not any one materialistic thing or accomplishment that you're going to get to that's going to make you feel better about yourself. You kind of got to just fall in love with the process. And that's really what I reflected on once we won the championship. It wasn't so much the moment. It was just more reflecting back on, wow, I put in so much time and effort and sweat and arguing with teammates and them arguing with me and us loving each other and hugging each other and laughing, and just so many memories that kind of went into the buildup and getting us to where we finally were.
Yeah, it's worth it. That's a really good message. And I think that for young people, honestly, for anyone, especially when I equate it to our faith, it's worth it to wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning and spend that time with the Lord. It's so worth it. And it's not fun, and it's hard, and it takes discipline. The Bible talks about that, I think, in the epistles, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. What's that look like for you from a spiritual perspective now that you're 24, almost 25 years old, and you're waking up, and that discipline as far as your faith goes each day? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm going to steal this from one of my good friends, Robert Golden, who I've been so blessed. He's actually opening his own school out here in Fresno, charter school, Golden Academy out here. He played on the Steelers as safety for about 7-8 years, was in the NFL. Now he's doing really big things. But I kind of talked with him about my faith a little bit, and something he said that it just really hit home and resonated with me is, he says a lot of people get caught up in turning into kind of almost checklist Christians, he called it. And he said, I don't put God at the top of my priority list. I put him in the center. And I was like, okay, like I like the way it's kind of a cool play on words. But I said, what do you mean by that when you say that? And he said, a lot of people wake up in the morning and kind of just do their devotions or whatever they have to do, or at night or in the middle of the day, and stop. He's like, it's more of a checklist thing. Like, okay, I went to church on Sunday. I did my devotion. I prayed before I ate. Like, I'm good for the day. Like, I'm done. And he says, I more look at it as putting God at the center of my life, where he's involved in every single activity that I'm doing throughout the day, as far as instead of just putting him at the top of my list, he's in the center of everything that I do. And that's something I've really been trying to adapt as far as that goes. But I also have kind of my meditations, and I read the Bible in the morning. I pray in the morning. So I kind of have my checklist things that I like to do as well. But understanding that for me, it's not so much just, okay, I crossed off my list. I'm done with God. I went to church on Sunday, so now I could leave church and go live my life now. It's like, no, it's not so much what you do inside the building with church, but what you do when you leave it. So just really trying to apply that. And again, just like the tattoo we talked about, as far as not boasting and stuff like it, it's a daily discipline and something I have to remind myself every day. It might sound well when I'm saying it. It's like, wow, this guy has it all together. It's like, no, I struggle with it day to day, just like everyone else does as well.
Yeah, that's really good. And I like to tell people, instead of having, and this is kind of a play on words on what Robert Golden said, is instead of having God as a piece of your life, make God the centerpiece of who you are. And so, like he says, it's the same thing, right? It's the same concept, is wherever you go, whatever you do, and it may be church on Sunday, it may be that time in the morning with God, it may be when you go to the barbershop, or when you go to the grocery store, or when you go get some gas, or when you go hang out with your friends. Like, God is with you through all of that. He's with you on every single aspect of your life, not just on Sundays at church. So that's good wisdom right there, Marcus. I really appreciate you sharing that. 2020, by the way, was obviously a tough year for so many, but for you, it was quite the year. When you think about your journey, you were jam-packed. You got married, you got your master's degree, you signed the pro football contract, and then you become a dad at the end of 2020 into 2021. What comes to mind when you think about all that took place last year? It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, 100%. It was a super jam-packed year for me, as far as it goes, kind of like you said. I mean, earning my master's, getting married, my wife obviously pregnant. We ended up having Malachi in 2021 April. But tons have happened. And I think kind of in the moment of it, you don't really realize. I know kind of a saying that I've heard before. It's like, when it's hard to see the forest when you're in it. So it's like once it's all kind of over and we kind of take a step back and then you see it, it's like, wow, like we really did a lot. And we could have very easily kind of just took a pause off and a timeout and just said, hey, 2020 is just a bad year. We're not going to do anything. But we kind of took the opposite approach. It's like, hey, let's do anything and everything, obviously safely, and kind of staying distance from people and whatnot. But it's difficult, and it's kind of cool to see everything that we did accomplish in 2020, when it was such a tough year for just everyone across the country, really just kind of taking a step back. And it's mind blowing. It's definitely a God thing, nothing I could do by myself.
I tell people, when you look back on it is when you can see God really in the midst. I mean, nobody really truly knows God's plan until you've walked through it. Like when you're in the middle of the forest, you might recognize that you're in God's plan, but it's not until you go through it that you look back and you say, oh, wow, look at that you kind of see how God wove it all together. So what's the great lesson God has shown you as we wind down here, Marcus? When you think back to 2020 and all that, you just mentioned what comes to mind, and where you are today, I feel like God teaches us something new every day. What's he teaching you when you think back to what you've been through and where he's taken you right now? What's the great lesson God is showing you today?
I think for me right now, what God really has on my heart is just kind of, I think for me, I've been really locked in and in tune to kind of develop myself a lot this year. And I say that with the intent, I'm trying to be more selfish. And I know I'm going to have to explain this a little bit when I say that, as far as I want to develop myself to the best version of myself that I could possibly be, so that I could be the best possible version of myself for other people. So I'm doing that as far as the ins and outs, as far as meditating daily, taking care of my health, taking care of just things that are in my control. Because I think when everyone really takes a serious, honest look at themselves and kind of understands there's so much more that we could give on a daily basis, as far as the potential that we all have kind of locked inside of us. And I want to say it was Ed Milet, or one of these motivational speakers I was listening to not too long ago. He talks about how his worst fear is kind of coming to the end of the road and kind of at the gates of heaven, and then God showing him the version of himself that he could have been if he would have just lived out his plan that God had for him for his life. And that kind of really hit home for me as well, as far as, wow, like imagine just seeing this version of yourself that was just completely developed and took advantage of every day and wasn't stressed about things they wouldn't be worried about in a week or two, and be completely irrelevant, and just really living each day to its fullest and calling people they loved and just making sure people knew they felt your presence and kind of energy when you're in the room. So really just making sure I take care of myself so that I could take care of those around me that I care about.
It's really well said. He is Marcus McMaryion with the Calgary Stampeders. They're going to be kicking off their season hopefully later this summer. Marcus, this was great, brother. Really appreciate having you on. Thanks for joining us, and look forward to talking again soon. All the best to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Jason. We'll talk soon.
And many thanks to Marcus McMaryion for joining us here today on the show. The CFL season hopefully kicking off in the summer, and Marcus preparing to play quarterback for the Calgary Stampeders in this upcoming CFL football season, the Canadian Football League. And we wish Marcus nothing but the best as he continues his professional football career, and he continues to be a servant leader and keep God at the center, as he talked about. We appreciate Marcus for joining us here on the show today. Give him a follow on Twitter. You can look him up, Marcus McMaryion, and let him know that you heard his story here on Sports Spectrum. You can also check out our website, sportspectrum.com. If you love Jesus and you love sports, this is the place to go each and every day for articles, podcasts, devotionals, all there for free at sportspectrum.com. You can sign up for our magazine, our quarterly magazine there as well. And you can sign up for our weekly newsletter, and you get a free gift, a 10-day devotional. All of this right there at sportspectrum.com. So make sure you go check out the website, and you can keep up with all of what's going on here at Sports Spectrum. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to our partners today, Convoy of Hope as well. You can learn about them at convoynation.com and donate and partner and do great work with Convoy of Hope in ending poverty and suffering in the U.S. and throughout the world. Convoynation.com is the website. And I'm Jason Romano, the host of Sports Spectrum. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.